What up my dudes, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be making a delicious kimchi recipe that's simple and easy to make from scratch. So without further ado, let's get started.
Alright, so this kimchi recipe is actually fairly simple, and it's actually made even simpler by the fact that we're not going to use any shrimp paste in this. I know it's traditional in kimchi to do that, but to make it easier for those of us across the pond, we're not going to. So we're going to take 2 medium-sized Napa cabbages, and we're just going to go ahead and give those a rough chop. You can vary it with how much thickness you like. I kind of like mine to be this like medium chop, so that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to add it all to the bowl. You can also not chop this, you can just use full leaves if you really want to. It's up to you. Now go ahead and over salt this. I mean, use way more salt than you think you need to. I'm using pickling salt. It's rather cheap. It's like $4 for a whole box in your baking goods section. It does not have any iodine or anything like that. And we're just going to give it a good mix. And honestly, we're just going to let this sit for about an hour or two after we give it a good mix, adding salt along the way. Like I said, you really just want to over salt that. Don't worry about this being too salty, because we're actually going to rinse off all this salt later. And the cabbage is going to absorb a lot of it. This is just to get the excess water out of the cabbage. Next, we're going to go ahead and add our accompaniments for this. I've gone ahead and julienne some carrots off screen because I forgot to record. I got a small daikon radish. Why am I holding it that way? It's a little creepy. And I'm going to give this a nice julienne. And by julienne, I mean just chop it into thin little strips for those of you who have not had any classical training or don't know how to use Google. Next, we're going to grab a bunch of green onions. I'm just going to chop this into thirds. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I'll just chop it into halves. Why not? Then we're going to grab some onions. And we're just going to chop these into quarters. It's going to be 2 onions. And I'll put the exact ingredients down in the video description below. And we're going to take off that little knob at the end because I don't want that gross stuff. Ugh, little onion hair. No thank you. Then we're going to take some onions that we've already taken and add some garlic to it. And then I got 2 Asian pears that I've already de-skinned. And we're just going to go ahead and chop them off on the sides, getting rid of that core. And we're using this to make our porridge, aka what we're going to mix our chili flakes with to spread all over our kimchi. Just chop it up because we're going to add this to our food processor / blender later, aka right now. You go ahead and add all our garlic and ginger in there. And once again, I'll add the exact ingredients below. I'm going to add some fish sauce to this. This is going to be an umami bomb, as well as add a little bit of salt. And if you're worried about it tasting too fishy, don't. Fish sauce tastes amazing. It smells funky, but it tastes amazing. And we're going to go ahead and blend this up until we got a nice thick paste, like so. Give it a little bit of pulse if it looks a little chunky. And there we go. This is what it should look like. Looks great. Now go ahead and add that to a bowl, like so. Any bowl, any vessel will work for this. Now we're going to go ahead and use some gochugaru flakes. These are Korean red chili pepper flakes. And they're delicious for a lot of cooking. I'm going to go ahead and dump it in there. And because I didn't have enough in that container, I'm going to add some more off camera and stir it in here. And this is going to give us that rich red color that kimchi is famous for. Be mindful of how spicy your kimchi flakes are. Some can be spicier than others. I prefer mine a little bit spicier, and so does my wife, so mine's a little hot. It should look like this, a vibrant red paste. And now we're going to go check on our cabbage. It's been about an hour, hour and a half. And this is what we want. We want to be able to pour off all this excess moisture. We really want to get this moisture out of this cabbage. Now for me, I noticed that it still had a lot of moisture in it, so I let it go for an extra 30 minutes to an hour. If yours is not wilting, starting to get a little bit soft, go ahead and press all the juices out of it like this. Give it a stir, give it a little macerate with your hands, and let it sit a little bit longer. You can see where it's actually reduced in volume by about half. I recommend using a giant bowl for this to make it a lot easier than this pot I'm using. And I come back another 30 minutes to an hour later, and you can see there's a lot more water in here. We're just going to go ahead and drain that off without spilling our cabbage. A little bit easier said than done. if I were to do this through a colander, it'd be so much simpler. You know, use a tool, use some common sense. Alright, there we go. I learned common sense. Let's put it in a colander and dump all that cabbage into it. And now you may think it's weird that after I poured off all that water, I'm going to go ahead and rinse it off like so and add water back to it. But at this point, the cabbage is so dehydrated, it's not going to absorb all this water. It's going to get rid of that excess salt. That will keep it from making this too salty. And we are going to squeeze it as we do this. Next, we're going to grab our fermenting container. You can use a glass jar, or you can use one of these little fermenting containers that I got off of Amazon. These things are great. Highly recommend them. Never had a bad batch from these things. Then we'll go ahead and layer in some of our accompaniments. And then we're going to grab some of our cabbage. And then we're going to put on some gloves and pour in some porridge. Like so. A little bit more. Then we're going to give it a nice fine mix. Making sure that we get it all well combined. Because we want this porridge to mix with that salt. That's what's going to cause the fermentation process in this. And what's going to make this actually taste delicious. As you can see, I'm just really getting in there and making sure everything gets covered in this sauce. And we're going to repeat those layers multiple times. And then we're really going to get in there and just make sure we're tossing this the whole time. And we just want to keep building those layers as much as possible. This one ensures that we get a nice even flavor throughout. And we are going to use everything we use to create this. So we are going to put all that red chili paste in there. And this is going to give it an excellent flavor. Now if you're using shrimp paste, feel free. I've never felt like it really needs it. And my wife doesn't really feel like it needs it. But it does add a good depth of flavor. But this recipe is designed to kind of work around it with that fish sauce. And as you can see here, look at that. That's a nice condensed paste. You do want to kind of tamp it down. Make sure we're getting excess water out. And then go ahead and wipe your box or container off. That way we can get a nice seal and it's not so dirty later. You'll just thank yourself later for this step. And then we're going to go ahead and put our lid down on there. And we want to press out all the air we can. This is an anaerobic process. Even though we're not doing any yeast in here or anything like that, since we're lacto fermenting, the salt will actually cause the bacteria to start to ferment in here. And then we just want to seal this up and put it off to the side. Maybe clean up our area a little bit, you know. And you want to leave this out at room temperature for about 2 to 3 days-ish. Maybe 1 day if it starts working and getting good. Oh, make sure you spill your Coca-Cola everywhere too. Good Lord, Marshall, come on, what are you doing? You're better than this. Clean it up. And after a couple days, if you start to see some liquid like this is actually a good sign. This means that it's actually fermenting and starting to expel extra liquid out of there. And after 2 to 3 days, you just want to make sure that you can smell the fermentation. You'll know what that means. And this is what it looks like after a week. You can see where the liquid starting to push out of there. We're getting that classic kimchi color and kimchi smell. And now let's get to a taste test. Oh man, look at that. Oh, let me tell you. This kimchi is delicious. It's tangy, spicy. It's got that delicious fermentation taste. And slightly carbonated due to that fermentation. And since it's natural, you just don't get that with the store-bought stuff.
And there you have it, a delicious kimchi recipe. I know it takes a little bit of time, but the results are worth it. Anyway, if you like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps me out. And as always, toodles.